The Erebus initiative had sent many ships into the stars, but few had ever gone as far as the starship Solstice. Its mission was to reach a distant world called Aurelia 9, a planet shining like a blue jewel in the far edge of the Andromeda frontier. The ship carried 20 explorers, scientists, and engineers, all humans ready to begin a new chapter of colonization. Among them was Commander Adrian Vale. People called him the Stormbringer, not because he caused chaos, but because he survived it. Whenever disaster struck, he stayed calm, steady as a stone in a hurricane. He had led crews through radiation flares, ship malfunctions, and near-death crashes. To many, he was a legend. To others, he was terrifying, too controlled, too cold. The only person who didn't admire him was Dr. Lyra Anwin, the mission's chief climatologist. She was the opposite of Vale, emotional, curious, and always talking to the world around her as if it could answer. Lyra had studied storms her whole life, but Aurelia 9's atmosphere was something beyond science. The readings showed endless storms of silver lightning moving across the planet's sky, forming patterns no algorithm could predict. From the observation deck, Lyra stared at the swirling clouds below. They looked alive, pulsing, shifting, reacting to light. Vale stepped beside her. "Dr. Anwin," he said in his usual calm tone, "we start descent in 2 hours. Is your analysis complete?" Lyra kept her eyes on the planet. "It's not stable. The lightning forms emotional waves. It's almost like it's aware of us." Vale didn't flinch. "Then we'll be careful." "That's not enough," she said quietly. "The patterns changed when we approached. It's as if the planet is watching us." Vale looked at her, his blue eyes steady. "Planets don't watch, Doctor. They react to physics, not feelings." Lyra smiled faintly. "You've never met a planet like this one." He didn't reply. He rarely did when emotions entered a conversation. When the descent began, the Solstice entered the upper atmosphere of Aurelia 9. The storms were far worse than the models predicted. Clouds of glowing vapor spun into massive funnels. Lightning flashed in arcs miles long. The air trembled like a living drum. Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed. The navigation display filled with static. "Atmospheric interference increasing," shouted Pilot Hino. "Shields at 60%. Another officer yelled. Vale's voice cut through the noise like a blade through fog. "Steady. Adjust angle 3 degrees starboard. Divert power from secondary thrusters to the stabilizers. Dr. Anwin, give me real-time charge density." Lyra's hands shook as she typed. "Negative field spikes. Rising faster than expected. Commander, this isn't normal weather." Vale leaned over her shoulder. His hand moved across the console, inputting new commands faster than anyone else could follow. "Then we'll make it normal," he said softly. The ship shuddered. A wave of white lightning split the clouds open. For a heartbeat, the world outside was pure light. Then darkness again. When the shaking stopped, everyone stared at the display. They were through the storm. Below them, they saw the surface. Glowing oceans, floating islands, and vast silver plains reflecting the sunlight like mirrors. The crew broke into cheers. Vale only nodded once. "Good work," he said, but Lyra didn't cheer. She stared at the readings. The storm behind them didn't fade. It circled in slow motion like a great eye turning toward them. The landing site was a plateau surrounded by crystal-like rock formations. The air shimmered with energy. Even through her suit, Lyra could feel it, like standing near a giant heartbeat. While the engineers set up the base modules, Vale walked across the edge of the plateau, scanning the horizon. Lyra followed him reluctantly. "The storm is still active above the Western Ocean," she said. "It's almost following our coordinates." Vale stopped and looked up at the sky. The silver clouds shifted slowly, glowing from within. "You think it's reacting to us?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said. "Maybe the ship's energy disturbed the balance. Maybe you're seeing patterns where there are none," Vale interrupted, though his tone wasn't cruel. It was measured, thoughtful. "The mind looks for meaning in chaos. But chaos doesn't care," Lyra frowned. "You really don't believe in anything beyond logic, do you?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Belief doesn't stop storms, Doctor. Calculation does." Before she could reply, a thunderclap rolled across the sky, deep and powerful, like a voice from the heavens. Lightning laced the horizon. For the first time, Vale's expression changed. Just slightly, he looked curious, By the third day, the colony's sensors started acting strangely. Machines near the storm field shut down without warning. Communication relays flickered. Lyra worked non-stop trying to decode the data. Vale visited her lab often. At first she thought he only came to check progress, but soon she realized he was studying her reactions, how she observed the storm, how she spoke to it as if it could hear. "Why do you talk to it?" he asked one evening. The storm's reflection lit his face in blue light. Lyra didn't look up from her screen. "Because sometimes it feels like it listens." He said nothing for a long time. Then quietly, "And if it does? Then maybe it's not a storm," she whispered. "Maybe it's something alive." He considered that. For a moment he almost smiled. "If that's true, Doctor, then you and I will need to learn how to speak its language." That night the storm returned. It wasn't supposed to. The weather models showed calm skies for another week. But out of nowhere, clouds began to form above the plateau, tall and glowing like pillars of light. The wind roared. The air crackled. The colonists ran for shelter as lightning struck the perimeter towers. Vale's voice echoed through the comms. "Everyone inside the base! Stay calm and seal hatches." Lyra was still outside, gathering her data sensors when the lightning hit near her position. The blast threw her to the ground. Her ears rang. She tried to stand, but the wind pushed her back. Through the storm's glare, she saw a dark shape moving toward her. Vale. He walked straight into the roaring wind, his steps sure and deliberate. The lightning flashed around him but never touched him. For a second, it looked like the storm avoided him. He reached her and pulled her up by the arm. "You should have gone inside," he said, voice steady even as thunder cracked above them. "I had to get the readings," she gasped. "Then next time, send a drone." He turned them both toward the base. The storm screamed around them, but he never quickened his pace. It was as if the world bent slightly to his calm. When they finally reached the airlock, Lyra looked back. The clouds were spinning faster, forming a spiral, like a giant eye again. And she could have sworn it pulsed when Vale turned his gaze toward it. Hours later, when the storm had faded, Lyra sat in the observation room, staring at the calm horizon. Vale entered quietly and stood beside her. "You saved me," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, I just did my job." She looked at him. "No one walks through lightning like that and calls it a job." He didn't answer. He just watched the distant flashes dying in the clouds. Finally, he said, "You were right about one thing." "What's that?" "The storm does feel alive." He turned his head slightly, meeting her eyes. "And it doesn't like being ignored." Lyra smiled faintly. "So, Commander, are you afraid of it now?" "No," he said simply. "Fear doesn't help. You learn to breathe through the noise." She studied him for a long moment. For the first time, she didn't see the cold commander the rumors spoke of. She saw a man who carried calm like armor, the kind of calm that could guide a world through chaos. Outside, the planet's lightning danced once more, softer this time, as if listening. Days turned into weeks on Aurelia 9, and life in the colony slowly settled into routine, or at least it tried to. The storms were not as frequent now, but they were always close. Sometimes the crew could see them in the distance, glowing silver like slow-moving giants across the horizon. Commander Adrian Vale and Dr. Lyra Anwin had started working together more often. It was not because they liked each other, at least that's what they told themselves, but because their research and survival had become one. Every time the weather changed, the colony's instruments behaved strangely. Machines recorded electrical surges that had no scientific explanation. Sometimes the storm would form right after a crew argument. Other times it would fade when everyone stayed calm. Lyra noticed this pattern first. She brought her theory to Vale one evening inside the operations room. "Commander," she began carefully, "I think the storms react to us." Vale looked up from the holographic map. "To us?" "Yes. Not just to energy readings or radiation. I think it reacts to emotions." He raised an eyebrow. "Emotions are not measurable, Doctor." "Maybe not with old instruments," she said quickly, "but the waveforms we're recording match emotional spikes in crew behavior. Fear, anger, even stress. When morale drops, storm energy rises." Vale folded his arms. "You're suggesting the weather has feelings?" Lyra met his eyes. "No. I'm suggesting it mirrors ours. The room went quiet. The hum of the machines filled the silence between them. Finally, Vale said, "If that's true, then the planet is reading us like we're the storm." Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe we are." To test her theory, they planned a field mission, a trip beyond the colony into the storm plains where the lightning was born. Most of the crew avoided that region. The storms there danced like living rivers of light. But Vale volunteered to lead the expedition. When he told Lyra she would accompany him, she tried to argue, but he said something that left her quiet. "If this planet truly responds to emotion, Doctor, it needs to meet yours." 2 days later, they set out in a rover, a small six-wheeled machine built to resist extreme conditions. As they drove across the plains, the sky darkened slowly, and the soft hum of electricity grew in the air. Lyra watched the horizon. "It feels alive out here." Vale focused on the path ahead. "Alive, but not hostile. It's just waiting." She turned to him. "You sound like you understand it." He smiled faintly. "I don't. I just recognize the silence before a storm. It's familiar." Hours passed before they reached the storm's heart. The air shimmered with bright white threads of energy stretching from the ground to the clouds. The sky looked like liquid glass. Lyra stepped out of the rover and felt her hair rise from static charge. Her equipment blinked rapidly, readings far beyond normal levels. "Commander," she whispered, "look at this. The frequency is almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat." Vale walked beside her, scanning the clouds. If this is a pulse, something must be generating it. They followed the energy trail across the plains until they reached a deep crater filled with strange glowing crystals. The light pulsed in perfect rhythm with the storm above. Lyra's voice trembled. "It's beautiful." Vale crouched, studying the surface. "And dangerous. Don't touch it." She nodded, though curiosity burned in her eyes. "Commander, what if the storms start here? What if the planet's core is alive?" "Alive how?" he asked. "Not like an animal," she said. "More like consciousness in the weather, a living atmosphere." He looked thoughtful. "You think this entire planet is one organism?" "Yes," she said softly. "And we are standing inside its heartbeat." For a long time, they both just watched the light pulse and fade like breathing. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck nearby, so close that it blinded them for a second. The ground shook, and the air filled with static waves. Lyra stumbled backward. Vale caught her arm before she fell. His grip was strong but gentle. "Stay calm," he said firmly. "It's reacting again." She looked around. The lightning was forming a circular pattern around them. Her heart pounded faster. "It's responding to me, isn't it?" "Maybe," Vale said, his voice steady. "Then stop running from it, breathe." Lyra tried to calm herself. She closed her eyes and focused on her heartbeat. Slowly, the lightning around them softened, fading from violent white to soft silver. Vale watched carefully. The readings on his wrist console stabilized. "It's working," he said quietly. She opened her eyes. "How?" "You changed," he replied. "You stopped fearing it." Lyra looked up at him. "Maybe I wasn't the one who needed to calm down. Maybe it was trying to show me that fear feeds it." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe calmness heals it." On their way back to the colony, the air felt lighter, as if the planet itself was breathing easier. When they reached base, the crew noticed that the sky above them was clearer than usual. The storms that had been forming near the colony now glowed faintly at a distance, peaceful, almost watching. That evening, as the crew celebrated their first successful data retrieval, Vale sat quietly by the observation window. Lyra joined him, holding 2 cups of synthetic tea. She handed him one. "To calm storms," she said with a small smile. He accepted it. "To the people who remind us how." They sat in silence, watching the stars. Later that night, the colony lights flickered again. The base's AI announced, Unidentified electromagnetic field approaching. Lyra ran to the control room, followed by Vale. On the main screen, a new type of storm was forming, not in the sky, but below the surface. The sensors showed a spiral of energy deep underground, right beneath the colony. Lyra frowned. It's coming from the core. Vale studied the display. Then whatever's alive here isn't just in the atmosphere. They quickly assembled a small team to investigate. Beneath the main compound was a network of tunnels where the colony stored its power lines and geothermal systems. The deeper they went, the stronger the electrical hum became. At the final chamber, they found a massive crystalline structure embedded in the ground. It was similar to the one they'd seen in the plains, but brighter, almost blinding. Lyra reached out instinctively. It's beautiful. Vale caught her hand before she could touch it. We don't know what it'll do. She looked at him. You're afraid? I'm cautious, he corrected. No, she said softly. You're calm. But calmness can hide fear too. He hesitated, then released her hand. Maybe. But fear won't help us understand this. Together they placed scanners around the crystal. As data filled their displays, a strange realization formed. The energy pattern matched human brainwaves. Lyra's eyes widened. It's reflecting us again. Mirroring thought? Vale asked. Yes. Every reading changes when we move or speak. It's not random. It's communication. They both stood silently for a moment, the glowing light bathing their faces. Lyra finally whispered, It's listening to us. Vale nodded. Then we need to decide what we want to say. Hours later, the colony rested, unaware of what had been discovered beneath their feet. Vale and Lyra stood outside on the plateau, watching distant lightning arcs move across the horizon. Lyra said quietly, When I first came here, I thought this planet was a monster. Vale looked at her. And now? Now I think it's just misunderstood. She smiled slightly. Like someone else I know. He raised an eyebrow. Is that your scientific opinion? It's my human one, she said. The wind brushed past them, soft and electric. Above, the clouds parted slightly, revealing the stars. For a brief moment, the sky was completely calm. No thunder, no lightning, only peace. Lyra turned to Vale. Do you think it can change? He looked at the stars. If it reflects us, then yes. If we change, it will too. Later that night, Lyra recorded her findings in the colony log. Aurelia 9 is not hostile. Its storms respond to human emotion and thought. Calmness appears to reduce electrical intensity, suggesting emotional synchronization between humans and planetary energy fields. Commander Vale and I will continue our study. He remains calm even when faced with chaos. Perhaps that is why the storm listens to him. He is the calm it never had. As she closed the log, she glanced at Vale through the window, standing outside under the faint glow of the storm. He looked like a figure carved from stillness, surrounded by lightning that refused to strike him. And in that moment, Lyra realized something she could never explain with science. The planet wasn't just reacting to them, it was learning from them. And through Vale, it was learning what calm truly meant. The colony had settled into a fragile rhythm on Aurelia 9, but the sense of calm was deceptive. The energy readings from the planet continued to fluctuate unpredictably. The deeper the crew delved into the data, the more they realized that this world was not like any other. Commander Adrian Vale and Dr. Lyra Anwen had spent days analyzing the core crystal beneath the colony. The patterns were unmistakable. The planet was alive, a sentient organism whose storm systems reflected human emotion. One morning, Vale called Lyra to the observation deck. She found him already staring at the horizon, where silver lightning arced across the distant plains. It's growing stronger, he said quietly. The core energy spikes are increasing, and it's now affecting the base's power systems. Lyra nodded. I've seen the readings. If it continues, the colony's instruments might fail completely. The storms could destabilize. Vale's gaze did not waver. Then we must synchronize. The planet is trying to communicate, not harm, but it needs guidance. Lyra's heart skipped. Synchronization. It was untested. They had no way of knowing if it would work or even if it was safe. You mean, harmonize our emotions with the planet's energy? She asked. Yes, Vale said simply. Not control it. Listen to it, respond to it, become part of its rhythm. Lyra studied him for a long moment. She had feared his calm before, thought it unyielding and cold, but now she realized something new. His calmness was not absence of feeling. It was strength, the kind that could anchor an entire planet. Then we do it together, she said. The plan was simple in concept, but daunting in practice. The colony's engineers would amplify the energy of the planet's core crystal, using a network of resonance transmitters. Each human participant would need to focus on calmness, on harmony, and on empathy. A collective emotional resonance to match the planet's heartbeat. Vale and Lyra were at the center of the field. Around them, the crew arranged the transmitters connecting wires and energy nodes, their hearts racing with anticipation. The storm will respond instantly, Vale warned. Do not panic. If fear rises, it will escalate the energy spikes. Lyra nodded, gripping her console. We can do this. Vale gave her a small, reassuring nod. It was the first time she noticed a hint of warmth in his otherwise steady presence. As the process began, the planet's energy pulses intensified. Lightning leapt across the plains, spinning faster, brighter. The sound was deafening, yet within that chaos Vale stood unmoved, a pillar of calm. Lyra took a deep breath, closing her eyes. She imagined the storm not as a threat but as a living being, waiting to understand. She let her heartbeat slow, letting focus replace fear. Around her, the crew did the same, each person striving for internal peace. The crystal beneath them began to glow brighter than ever before. Its pulsing matched their collective heartbeats. Slowly, the storm outside seemed to respond. The arcs of lightning softened, the thunder dulled, and a rhythmic pattern emerged, like a giant breathing organism. Vale spoke softly, barely above a whisper. Now, Doctor. Keep steady. The planet is learning from us. Lyra's eyes filled with wonder. It's beautiful, the energy shifted. The storm began to swirl into a spiral above the colony, forming a glowing vortex. But it no longer felt dangerous. It felt alive, and it was listening. Hours passed as they maintained the synchronization. Every second was a test of focus, of inner calm. One misstep, a spike of fear, a ripple of doubt, and the planet could respond unpredictably. Lyra glanced at Vale. He was still steady, his presence a shield against panic. She realized something profound. The storm mirrored him as much as it mirrored her. Where she had once feared him, now she drew strength from him. The planet pulsed, sensing their calm, their intent. Slowly, the chaotic energy began to harmonize. Lightning arcs bent toward the horizon, not in aggression but in gentle arcs. Clouds shimmered like silver silk. A sense of peace spread over the landscape. Lyra whispered almost to herself, "We're speaking its language." Vale's gaze met hers. Yes, not with words, with understanding. By dawn, the sky had changed. The violent storms were gone. The once glowing vortex had transformed into a delicate aurora, casting soft lights over the colony. The planet had accepted their presence, responding to humanity's patience, empathy, and calm. The crew emerged from the base, amazed at the tranquil beauty around them. For the first time, Aurelia 9 felt safe. The silver lightning arcs were gone, replaced by subtle energy glows along the clouds and plains. The air was vibrant, alive, but not threatening. Lyra turned to Vale. We did it. He nodded, though his eyes were fixed on the horizon. Not just us. Humanity did it. Together we showed that calm, focus, and care can shape even a world. She smiled faintly. You were the calm we needed. And you were the courage it reflected, he replied softly. Days later, the colony thrived. The storms became predictable, responding gently to human activity. Data collection was easier, work became safer, and the planet's energy began to contribute positively to the colony's systems, powering devices with clean, abundant energy. Lyra continued studying the storms, now confident that they were allies, not enemies. Vale oversaw the colony's operations, guiding with his calm presence. Together, they formed a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and quiet strength. Sometimes at night, they would stand on the plateau watching the soft auroras dance across the horizon. You know, Lyra said one evening. I thought I'd come here to study the planet, but I think it was studying us too. Vale looked at her, eyes reflecting the gentle light of the aurora. It did, and I think it learned what peace feels like. She smiled. And what about you? What did you learn? He considered, then said, that even the strongest storms need someone to understand them. Weeks passed, and the colony sent its first successful report back to Earth. Aurelia 9 is alive. Its storms respond to human emotion. By harmonizing with the planet, humanity has shown that understanding and empathy can guide even the most chaotic forces. Commander Adrian Vale and Dr. Lyra Anwin played a crucial role in establishing a stable connection. This planet teaches us that calm, patience, and care are as powerful as any technology. Lyra read the report aloud to Vale. He didn't react, simply watched the glowing horizon. You know, she said softly, I used to fear you. Your calmness felt like a storm I couldn't face. Vale finally smiled, a quiet, warm smile. And now? Now, she said, you are the calm I never want to lose. He nodded. And you are the courage I never knew I needed. Outside, the aurora shimmered, a gentle dance of silver and gold across the plains. The planet's heartbeat was steady, mirroring the calm and courage of humanity. In that moment, Lyra understood something deeper than science. It was not just the planet that had learned to listen. Humanity had learned to listen to itself, to calm its fears, embrace its courage, and understand the storms both outside and within. Vale and Lyra stood together, the quiet night around them. The silver lightning arcs of fear were gone. The planet, alive and aware, had finally learned to breathe in harmony with humans, and so, Aurelia 9 became not just a new world, but a testament to humanity's spirit, its ability to face chaos, embrace calm, and transform fear into understanding. The storm was no longer something to fear, it was a teacher, and in that calm, Lyra and Vale found something neither had expected: each other. The stars above shone brighter than ever. The planet beneath them pulsed with quiet life, and humanity, for the first time on Aurelia 9, felt at home.